Hey, it's Filip from Habit Bootcamps, and in this video I'm going to talk about how to deal with stumbles, slips and relapses. Now, in the process of building up good habits, quitting bad habits and getting rid of addiction, stumbles, slips and relapses are normal. The consequences of these can be grave. It can just be something temporary, or it can become something long-term that you indulge in a bad behavior again. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the difference between a slip-up and a relapse and some things you could do when you slipped up or you relapsed again. Now let me first talk a bit about what the difference is between a slip-up and a relapse. You can almost compare a slip-up with a stumble and a relapse with a fall. Not every stumble should be a fall. But it is an important warning signal to pay attention and be aware of the next actions and decisions you will make. A slip-up is a temporary, short-lived, isolated event that could potentially lead to a lot of negative consequences. A slip-up shouldn't be ignored, but it also shouldn't be blown out of proportion. It is not the end of your whole journey of building a good habit, quitting a bad habit, or getting rid of addiction, because you already got some momentum and you already laid some groundwork. But it is important to stand still and think about what the next action will be you should take. Sometimes having some guilt and having some shame can be really useful, because then you see this behavior is not serving me, so I should get back on track as fast as possible. But what often happens is that people feel so guilty and so shameful that they feel everything is lost and they return back to the bad negative behavior from the past. A slip-up doesn't have to mean that you relapse. To relapse often demands a lot of setbacks, stumbles, and a lot of slip-ups to finally decide that you're going to indulge in your negative bad behavior or addiction again. So somebody who decided to be sober and he's sober for a long time and finally went out again and started drinking again and he feels miserable with a hangover the next day, this doesn't mean that everything is lost. You've been indulging in this bad behavior for such a long time, it still has a strong gravity pull. But he who stumbles and doesn't fall gains a step. So you can also use these slip-ups and these stumbles to get a lot of information about what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what serves you, and what doesn't serve you. If you immediately get back on track with the good behavior again, it can actually strengthen your resolve and help you stay on track, get more momentum, and make sure that you don't stumble or relapse again. Other people let this slip up, totally define their future and think everything is lost and they relapse again. It is important to take a slip up seriously. It can prevent you from relapsing. But if you will think it also defines your future behavior and everything is lost, it can even make things a lot worse and make you return back to that old behavior that was not serving you. Recovery is not an all or nothing commitment. It's a work in progress. Often you have setbacks, stumbles, falls and relapses, but you get back on track again. Don't underestimate the difficulty of building good behaviors, quitting bad habits, and getting rid of addiction. Oftentimes, it's a rocky road, but it's possible. That way you see how much that old identity is still a part of your life, how much you're still being triggered, but every day you make a resolve to move in the right direction, cultivate some willpower, cultivate some self-control, and keep moving in the right direction. Especially in the beginning, it takes time and you have more chance to slip up. But if you strengthen your resolve, learn from these experiences and these slip-ups and keep moving forward, you will keep having more reference experiences of that good behavior, and the gravity of those bad habits and addictions will become less and less. The worst thing you can do is to stay stuck in guilt and shame, because these emotions really make sure that you want to escape from that pain, from that self-judgment, and then relapsing again to your bad behavior to escape from these emotions and to numb yourself will be very tempting. So we can have a little bit of guilt and shame because we know we shouldn't have done this, but if you stay stuck in this, you will have these negative emotions you want to escape from. So we want to find healthier ways how to deal with slip-ups and with relapses. So I'm going to give you 11 healthy ways to deal with a slip-up or a relapse. Number 1, get back on track as fast as possible. As I explained in the previous video, you have something which is called habit suicide. If you skip a habit or if you indulge in a bad habit or addiction again, get back on track as fast as possible. The more negative momentum you will be gaining, the more you will be pulled to your old ways and old negative behaviors. So use that slip up or relapse to get back on track again as fast as possible. Not everything is lost, but the more you skip a good habit or indulge in a bad habit, the more that will be compounding again, and it'll be harder and harder to get back on track with the good behavior again. Number 2, pause to reflect. It happened for a reason. What happened in your life that you finally indulged in this bad behavior again? There must be a reason. How are you feeling? Were you anxious, stressed, depressed? What events in your life triggered the use or indulgence in this bad habit or addiction again? Reflect how you're feeling. What did you do that led up to doing this bad habit or addiction again? There must be a reason. Don't immediately try to cover it up with shame or guilt or distracting yourself. You really want to find out what actually made this happen. This is actually a valuable exercise by itself because you will get a lot of information to prevent it the next time and to become more aware of the choices you make now and the choices you made in the past that led up to making this negative decision. Number 3, acknowledge your feelings. It's okay now to feel guilty and shameful. It means that deep down inside you know that this behavior is not serving you. But we also don't want to numb ourselves out and escape from our feelings. We want to be present with ourselves. It's fine now. It happened. You can't change it. So be present with your feelings. So try to figure out how you feel now and how you felt in the past. Give yourself some time. Give yourself some space to really be present with these feelings. We don't only want to feel positive feelings. We also want to acknowledge our negative feelings. Because the more we will push our negative feelings away, the more they will come to haunt us in our behaviors because we never really dealt with them. Number 4, give yourself compassion. If a close friend would slip up or relapse, wouldn't you be compassionate, empathic, give him a hug? Well, a lot of times we're very empathic toward other people, but we're not empathic towards ourselves. So be a bit kind and compassionate towards yourself. Being very strict, being very hard on yourself will only fuel more self-judgment, more pain, more guilt, and more shame. At least you're trying to change yourself for the better. A lot of people are not even doing that. So be a bit compassionate towards yourself. If you would do this for other people, why wouldn't you do this for yourself? Number 5, look at the groundwork you already completed. You look at the slip up or relapse right now. But before this slip up or before this relapse, you must already gain some momentum. There must have been some days where you had a good momentum going on with doing some good habits, quitting some bad habits, or getting rid of addiction. So not everything is lost. This is just a warning signal. It doesn't have to mean that every effort you've put into up until now is lost. Failure should be our teacher, not our undertaker. Failure should be delay, not defeat. Failure is just a temporary detour, not a dead end. You can really learn from this failure or mistake to focus again on what matters and what's good for you. Number 6, focus on your intention. There must have been a reason why you decided to finally go for some good habits, quit some bad habits, or quit an addiction. What's your higher purpose? What are your values? What is that optimal future you wish to achieve? Bring that back to mind, bring back that intention to realize that this was the reason why I started in the first place. It doesn't depend on your temporary emotions or feelings. It depends on your willpower, discipline, and to stand for that commitment to become a better and more optimal version of yourself. So this was the intention why you started in the first place. So you want to be pulled by this bigger, better version of yourself. Just because you made a bad decision right now doesn't mean you can keep moving forward towards that person you want to be one day. Number 7, make the smallest step or make it easier to follow through. Maybe you've put too much pressure on yourself and it demanded so much willpower, self-control, and discipline you couldn't keep it up. Maybe you can minify the habit, make it easier, make it more comfortable, and then gradually in the future, when you don't make mistakes or you don't fail again, you can make it harder and less comfortable. That way, we gradually optimize for success. Maybe you overstretched and overwhelmed yourself by A, making the habit too hard from the beginning, or you're focusing on implementing too many new habits and behaviors at the same time. So maybe you should cut out certain things or make them easier and then gradually implement them in the future. Then we move on to number 8 and 9, which are all about anticipating and minimizing temptations and challenges in your environment and in your mind. Number 8, if-then planning. A good thing to use is implementation intentions. It means when X occurs, I will do behavior Y. So when you're tempted to slip up again and indulge in a bad behavior, you are going to do Y. You are going to pre-commit and pre-decide that you're going to do this behavior when that temptation arises. That way you don't have to think about it and you safeguard yourself to learning how to deal with these challenges and temptations. You really want to plan for failure and think, what are some temptations and challenges that could come up? And how can I replace doing that bad habit or behavior with something that would be much more helpful, healthy, and useful? That way, when we're really tempted by that behavior which was so strong with us in the past, that way, when that temptation occurs and we're really tempted, we already know what we should do and we commit to doing that specific behavior. It's a way to protect a good behavior. As I said before, he who has a stumble but doesn't fall gains a step. So you want to make sure that when there's that stumble or the possibility of a stumble, then you choose a behavior which makes you step in the good direction. Number 9, avoid temptations and environment that reminds you of that bad habit or addiction. Oftentimes our bad habits and addictions are ingrained in the environment and with people we meet and places we visit. So we want to avoid these places and people that remind us of the addiction, because it will trigger a lot of things in our mind that we feel tempted to do again. So just avoid them or remove them from your environment so you're not tempted, because there's so much associations of this place, of this behavior, of this person with that specific bad habit. You want to avoid it. Maybe completely, and if you want to visit these places or people again, especially in the beginning, because the beginning is always the hardest part, because you're not used to doing the good habit or quitting the bad habit and addiction, so you want to be less tempted to indulge in that bad behavior again and slip up or maybe have it turn into a relapse. Number 10, there is no past, only this step. You did the bad behavior or indulged in addiction again. There's nothing you could do to change it. There is only the now and the positive actions you could make in the future. Staying stuck in this negative behavior, in guilt, in shame, not reflecting about how you could use this mistake to focus, to get some insight, to become aware, to prevent it in the future, will not get you anywhere. You don't want to make the situation more difficult than it is. You want to see it as a learning experience, as a useful feedback that you got about what serves you and doesn't serve you. So even these negative things can be positive if you use them the right way. But if you're only going to focus on the negative and not take some positive action and have some positive thoughts, it will be really difficult to not slip up again and relapse in that negative behavior again. And number 11, keep busy. When you're ruminating all the time, thinking negative thoughts about why you slipped up or why you relapsed again, you can have that negative hamster wheel of thoughts in your brain that keeps on fueling these negative thoughts and only focuses on the negative. So you also want to be busy doing some useful activities, surround yourself with some good friends, else you're gonna isolate yourself, stay stuck, and you're much more prone to be anxious, frustrated, depressed, and return back to that bad behavior. So don't only focus on this one thing. It doesn't have to define your identity or your life and make some different decisions in the future. You are not only this bad behavior. You also can cultivate some skills, help some people, get some productive work done. That way you realize you're more than this bad decision that you made. You can integrate it into a life where you're also making other good choices. You have other good habits, you surround yourself with some good people, and you're doing some productive work. So this element wasn't okay, but you can return to some other things which make you feel satisfied and fulfilled. And some last advice for people who want to help people who relapsed. You don't want to judge them. They're probably already judging themselves pretty hard. Even if it doesn't seem like that at the surface, they're covered with a lot of guilt and shame. So you want to be compassionate and empathic to encourage them to get back on track again. By themselves, with your help, or maybe with some help with some other people or expert who could support them on the journey. Realize that this doesn't define their identity. That one little slip up or that relapse doesn't have to become a permanent lifestyle. You can really believe in them, encourage them so they can start believing in themselves, and they are encouraging themselves to get back on track again. In the end, people can only help themselves. You really want them to learn from this experience, congratulate them that they already had a streak of success, and help them believe that they can keep up and they can keep on doing it. Some challenges, some obstacles, some failures are natural, but that doesn't have to define their life. They can keep up and gradually make less mistakes, less stumbles, less relapses, and got a whole streak of good experience, good habits, and good behavior again. So really want to encourage them, not judge them, but also call some stuff out so they really have an honest conversation with themselves, but not you as an adversary, but someone who supports them and has the best intentions in mind. So this was a video about how to deal with stumbles, slip-ups, and relapses. Realize that when you want to implement difficult habits, quit difficult hard habits, or especially addictions, it's normal that you slip up, stumble, or relapse sometimes. But there are some ways that you could use these moments to really get a lot of feedback about yourself, how you think, the decisions and choices that you make. So let me know which one of these strategies works for you, how you deal with a slip up or a relapse or a failure, and how you make sure that you stay on track again and focus on the good behaviors. I will talk to you in the next video. Hey, it's Phil from Houte Bootcamps, and if you like my channel, don't forget to subscribe and check out some more videos about how to install good habits, quit bad habits, and get rid of addictions.